Hello, music lovers, and welcome back to World Music Facts. Today, we are going to travel back to the late 1970s to uncover the fascinating story behind one of the most iconic songs in music history, Heart of Glass by the legendary American band Blondie. At first listen, Heart of Glass sounds like a perfect disco hit designed for dance floors around the world. But the truth behind this song is much more surprising than most people realize. The story actually began several years before the song became famous. Back in 1974, Blondie members Debbie Harry and Chris Stein wrote an early version of the song under a completely different title, Once I Had a Love. At that time, the song sounded nothing like the version that would later conquer the world. It had a slower rhythm, a softer melody, and a very different musical style. The band experimented with many versions over the years. At one point, they tried performing it as a ballad. Later, they even experimented with reggae influences. However, none of these versions felt quite right. For years, the song remained unfinished. Everything changed when producer Mike Chapman began working with Blondie on their groundbreaking album Parallel Lines in 1978. Chapman encouraged the band to revisit some of their older songs, and Once I Had a Love immediately caught his attention. This time, the band decided to combine elements of disco music with the energy of new wave rock. At the time, this was considered a risky decision. During the late 1970s, many rock fans disliked disco music, and there was a strong rivalry between rock culture and disco culture. Many artists were afraid of mixing the two genres, but Blondie decided to do something different. They believed music should have no boundaries. The result was Heart of Glass, a revolutionary combination of electronic sounds, disco rhythms, and rock attitude that sounded unlike anything else on the radio. One of the song's most recognizable features was its use of synthesizers and drum machines, technologies that were still relatively new in mainstream pop music at the time. These futuristic sounds helped create the song's unforgettable atmosphere and gave listeners a glimpse of what music in the 1980s would soon become. When the song was finally released in 1979, it quickly became a global sensation. Heart of Glass reached number one in the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, Germany, and several other countries around the world. It became Blondie's first major international hit and transformed the band into global superstars. However, not everyone celebrated the song's success. Some fans from the punk music scene accused Blondie of abandoning their roots and becoming too commercial because of the song's disco influences. Debbie Harry strongly defended the band's decision. She explained that artists should never be afraid to experiment with new sounds and explore new creative directions. Over time, history proved her right. Today, Heart of Glass is widely recognized as one of the songs that helped break down the barriers between musical genres. It showed the world that rock and disco could exist together and create something truly special. The lyrics themselves tell a story of love, disappointment, and emotional vulnerability. The title Heart of Glass represents feelings that seem strong on the outside, but can easily break under emotional pressure. Many listeners connected deeply with this message, which helped make the song even more memorable. Interestingly, Debbie Harry later revealed that the lyrics were not written about one specific person. Instead, they reflected universal feelings of heartbreak and lost love that almost everyone experiences at some point in life. More than 4 decades after its release, Heart of Glass continues to appear in movies, television shows, commercials, and playlists around the world. New generations continue to discover the song every year. Its influence can still be heard in modern pop, electronic music, and dance music. Music critics now consider it one of the defining songs of the late 1970s and one of the most important crossover hits in popular music history. In recognition of its cultural importance, Blondie's album Parallel Lines, which featured Heart of Glass, has received lasting historical recognition and preservation for its impact on music history. What began as an unfinished demo called Once I Had a Love eventually became one of the greatest pop songs ever recorded. Sometimes, the songs that take the longest to complete become the ones that last forever. And that is the incredible story behind Blondie's timeless classic, Heart of Glass. As the success of Heart of Glass spread across the world, many listeners began asking the same question. How did Blondie create a sound that felt so modern and futuristic in 1979? The answer lies in the recording process itself. During the recording sessions for the album Parallel Lines, producer Mike Chapman wanted every detail of the song to sound perfect. Unlike many songs of the era that were recorded quickly, Heart of Glass required countless hours of experimentation. The band worked carefully on the rhythm section, the synthesizers, and especially the electronic drum sounds that would later become one of the song's trademarks. In fact, some members of the band were initially unsure about using so many electronic elements. Remember, this was the late 1970s. Electronic pop music had not yet taken over the charts. Using drum machines and synthesizers in a rock band was still considered unusual, but Blondie believed they were creating something special, and they were right. One of the most difficult parts of recording the song was keeping the electronic rhythm perfectly synchronized with the live instruments. Modern computers did not exist in recording studios at that time. Everything had to be performed with incredible precision. Even small timing mistakes meant recording parts of the song again and again. The effort paid off. When audiences first heard the opening beat of Heart of Glass, they immediately knew they were listening to something different. The song felt futuristic. It sounded like music from tomorrow. Another interesting fact is that Debbie Harry's vocal performance was intentionally kept cool and restrained. Instead of singing with dramatic emotion, she delivered the lyrics with a calm and almost mysterious style. This created a feeling of distance and heartbreak that perfectly matched the song's message. Music critics later praised this performance as one of the greatest vocal recordings of the disco era. As the song climbed international charts, radio stations began playing it almost nonstop. Soon, dance clubs from New York to London were filled with people dancing to the unforgettable rhythm of Heart of Glass. The song became a cultural phenomenon. For many listeners, it represented the sound of an entire generation. Its influence reached far beyond the disco scene. Artists from pop, electronic music, synth-pop, and even alternative rock would later cite the song as an inspiration for their own music. Many experts believe that Heart of Glass helped open the door for the explosion of synth-pop music during the 1980s. Without songs like this, the musical landscape of the next decade might have looked very different. The music video also played an important role in the song's success. Featuring stylish fashion, dramatic lighting, and the unforgettable stage presence of Debbie Harry, the video helped establish Blondie as one of the coolest and most influential bands of their generation. Debbie Harry quickly became a global style icon. Her look, attitude, and confidence inspired countless musicians and performers around the world. Even today, many artists continue to reference her fashion style and stage image. Over the years, Heart of Glass have been covered by numerous singers from different countries and musical genres. Some artists transformed it into acoustic ballads. Others turned it into rock songs or electronic dance tracks. Yet no version has managed to replace the magic of the original recording. That original version continues to capture the hearts of listeners more than 40 years later. Perhaps the reason is simple. The emotions inside the song are timeless. Love, disappointment, hope, and heartbreak are experiences shared by people in every country and every generation. A song that speaks honestly about those feelings never truly grows old. Today, Heart of Glass is not remembered simply as a disco hit. It is remembered as a musical revolution. It proved that great artists do not follow trends. They create them. And what started as an unfinished song called Once I Had a Love eventually became one of the greatest recordings in popular music history. More than 4 decades later, the opening beat of Heart of Glass still fills dance floors, radio stations, movies, and playlists around the world. That is a true sign of a timeless classic. Thank you for joining World Music Facts. Stay tuned for more incredible stories behind the songs that changed music history forever.